Tekken 3 is probably the most legendary fighting game of all time. It is always talked about within the casual Tekken community as being the best game in the entire franchise, being one of the most innovative and groundbreaking fighting games ever made, being way ahead of the pack and just an all-time classic and must-own game for the PlayStation 1. I don't think there was a single person in the 90s who was growing up that did not have this game if they were a PlayStation owner. It is that popular. You had to own it. But does it hold up today is the real question. 26 years ago, this game blew the world away. Will this game blow me 26 years later? Let us find that out. I do have some history with this game, of course. I was not alive when it came out, but I got a taste of it with a demo disc included with Ridge Racer Type 4. It had Tekken 3 included and in Klonoa as well. I just cared about Tekken 3 only, and I played the shit out of that demo even though I could only use two characters, Eddie and Ling Xiaoyu. But years and years after that, I was living in this apartment complex as a 7 to 8 year old, and I saw this game actually sitting on top of a washing machine in one of the laundry rooms. I took the game and ran. I have no idea if someone was coming back for it, but I just took it and left. I brought it home, or stole it if you want to call it that, and I played the hell out of this game, did everything possible. I've not played it since then, but when the game loads in with that intro, I feel the excitement of being a kid playing this game all over again. The soundtrack in this game is stupendous. All of the music in this game, I love it to death, and that goes without saying. We have a retro line of characters here. Sadly, Kazuya didn't make the cut here, unfortunately, one of my favorite characters. I wanted to play as the Iron Grandpa, but I don't have him yet, so Paul will suffice for now. My first fight is against Eddie, the famous Kick Buttons, the character. Everybody I would remember hate fighting this guy back in the day, like hated the fuck out of him. He's the first opponent, so naturally he's very easy. The game feels so fluid, especially coming from Mortal Kombat 4. That's saying a lot because that game's a janky piece of shit. So I mean, I don't know. I lay his ass out in a second to fight good old Jin. I remember him being broken as hell in this game. I used him a lot when I was younger, and his moves are all really strong here. The AI is incredibly dumb so far, so they're not utilizing his power, of course. Maybe it's just the Mortal Kombat AI rotting my brain and expecting the worst, but in these two fights, I have not struggled one bit, which has helped me get used to the controls. Lei is the Jackie Chan-esque character of this game. His music is really catchy, and I know I keep repeating about the music, but it seriously just is that good in this game. He actually put up a fight bringing me close to death, which actually did shock me so far since the AI has been so brain dead. You can just toilet them to your heart's consent and shit all over them however you want. Yoshimitsu made a costume change here. I remember him being a character with a Raiden hat is what I like to call them, but I'm talking about one of those rice hats. He's more like an alien here, which became a staple moving forward. He's like a squid looking character in Tekken 7. I actually like the design though. He has this lightsaber ass weapon instead of a traditional sword. I was trying to test out some throws on him and I couldn't really get them to work at times, unfortunately. Thankfully the AI is dumb enough to let me keep trying until I can actually pull them off though. I really am loving how this game feels. I feel more in control. When I mess up, it makes me feel like I'm the one that made the mistake rather than, oh no, the AI read my input, moves take priority over me and did. I really hate that shit about old fighting games, but here, even on hard mode, the AI is more fair than the Mortal Kombat games of this time period. I lose my first round here, but that did not stop him from his ass whooping though. I actually forgot about this asshole, even though he was on the character selection screen in the beginning. I hated playing against this son of a bitch back in the day, and I'm sure on the harder difficulties he pull off this most nonsense combo strings and kill me. Thankfully, he did not really pose much of a threat to me, of course. I haven't played this game in forever, and I'm really shocked how fast I'm breezing through it on normal difficulty. Bruce Lee is next, or Law as he's called here, but let's be real, that's who the character takes inspiration from clearly. He just gets his ass beat. I'm not really sure why he wasn't watching some of the Bruce Lee films to prevent this from happening, to learn a thing or two. I actually forgot to mention, every time you win a round, there's this slow-mo replay from when you defeated the opponent showing you what you did. It's kinda pointless, but cool nonetheless. I bet that made a kid shit his pants back in the day. Ling Xiaoyu was much of the same. I feel like I'm getting better with the controls, handling myself around, getting used to this actual 3D gameplay, since this game really utilizes it, unlike Mortal Kombat 4, which is just fake 3D gimmicky bullshit. You can do sidestep moves, which makes the fighting more in-depth. I just suck at pulling off the sidestep for some reason. I don't know, I can just never get it to go off when I want to, and it ends up killing me sometimes. When I get to Heihachi, I actually had trouble for the first time. This asshole was beating me really bad, but the best part is actually I felt like it was my fault when I lost. You see, with Mortal Kombat 1, 2, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Trilogy, it's like a 50-50. It's partially your fault, then the other 50% is just the AI reading your inputs to steal your quarters. I'm sure the arcade version of Tekken 3 was actually difficult, but I'm glad they balanced the game well for the home port. Unlike Mortal Kombat Trilogy, where you have to bring the cheap, cheating AI horseshit home, it should have been left in the arcade where it fucking belongs. If you aren't stealing my money, then don't make the AI completely fucked so I can actually have a chance to win. This fuck brought me to the final round like 4 times in a row, but I finally ended up beating him, preserving through his dog shit tactics so I could win to make it to the final boss boss of the game, Ogre. This Shrek looking ass is an alright character. I like his design. He has this annoying kick spamming thing where he seems like he can do it an infinite amount of them, and if he gets you trapped in an endless loop, it can get really annoying. I got sick of it really quickly, but thankfully he stopped doing it when it started to get obnoxious. Still irritating regardless though. The final hours, I was upping my defensive game pussy play I used in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which did end up working. When I beat him, there was this cutscene of him picking up Heihachi by his skull, absorbing his power, I assume, but I don't really know exactly what's happening here, but sure. He turns into this big, intimidating monster that you'd think would be really hard of a boss, but not really. He's not intimidating or anything. He's just a big, goofy idiot that just does nothing and dies. How riveting. We get our Paul cutscene and finish the arcade mode for Tekken 3. So that's all, right? No, actually there's more content in this game aside from fighting. We have Tekken Force Mode, which is basically a side-scrolling beat-em-up game, but like a ghetto version of one because you can't compete with a real beat-em-up game. It's still cool to have. And Tekken Volleyball. Yes, volleyball. We will be looking at Tekken Force Mode first, though. I picked Law because why not? Our level is a generic street area. We have to fight classic characters like Crow and Falcon. It is very easy, though. You can finish the entire mode by pressing one single button. Like, I'm not joking. You can actually do that. The only time you have to worry is when they corner you. They can drain all of your life extremely fast when they do that. They'll like push you into a corner and keep spamming this jab attack and pushing you backwards so you can't hit them. It gets really fucked occasionally, but for the most part, it's pretty tame, I'd say. There are chicken power-ups you can get for health, so you can thankfully replenish your health in some way, and it's not just like, oh, I'm walking around, can't get any health, and I'm just fucking screwed if I get stuck in a corner or something. You can at least have a way to fight back if you do end up getting trapped. At the end of these levels, you will always fight a boss. In my case, it was Paul, and after you beat the boss, you'll just move on to the next level and get points if you care about that. I mean, it was an arcade game, so what do you expect? Next up is a desert. All of the levels are very generic here. The controls are kind of weird too. Like, when you're facing up and down, you expect to have to press up and down to move away and towards the enemies, but you still have to press left and right. So it gets a little bit confusing during play if you don't expect that to happen to you. Like, when you're facing up, you're like, oh, I have to press left to go backwards and right to go down, and it just kind of gets a little confusing at times, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. All of your moves transfer over from the normal game. No specific moves are actually created for this mode. You can kick, punch, and do combos like you would in traditional fighting. Sometimes they're hard to pull off though because of the said awkward movement that we talked about. Difficulty actually does affect this mode, by the way. If you play this on hard mode, it can be really tough. You have to play super scared and be careful what's happening around you at all times because the enemies will fuck you up very, very fast. Make sure you save your chickens and be careful. Going through this level, I was testing it and I kind of just beat this entire level by only pressing one button. Not against Hwoarang though. I kicked his ass and we're on to the third level. Your progression bar is on the bottom of the screen so you can see how much of each stage you have left to go. That is nice, but the mode unfortunately does get pretty tiresome because it is one button, the video game. There is actually a reason to do this mode though. When you finish the mode fully 3 times, you get keys for each completion. You do this mode a 4th time after you have those said keys, you have to fight Dr. B, which is a secret character you have to beat him to unlock. Otherwise, there's not really sense of coming back to this mode. It is cool to play when you haven't touched the game in a really long time. It's just kind of tacked on, not really sustainable, but at least it was here to add more content for your gaming experience. Heihachi is always the final boss of this mode. He can seriously be an asshole sometimes, no matter what difficulty you fight him on. So after you finish this level, you will actually go on to fight Dr. B and fight him in the traditional one-on-one fighting, and it's not like this like side-scrolling bullshit, it's a real fight. And then you have to make sure you beat him and you unlock him. If you actually end up losing that fight, you have to redo this whole thing all over again. So if you're trying to unlock him, I would recommend starting on easy mode, going through, finishing all the levels very easy. That way Dr. B is as easy as possible so you can win and not have to risk losing to do everything all over again, which can really be fucking annoying. Now with that being over, we have Tekken Volleyball. This mode is so much fun to play. You have an invisible line between you and another player. When you hit the ball with a power attack, it will charge up, home in on the other player to damage them. Of course your goal is to kill your opponent, but if the ball lands on the ground, they'll also take damage from that too. You have 3 balls to choose from. Of course it changes with difficulty. I would recommend the iron one. It makes the game a lot more intense and way more fun to to play. The first time you play, there is a small dinosaur character named Gon. You just have to beat him and you will unlock him. There's nothing more to say than that. It's a very fun experience, especially with a friend. This mode can be a blast. I've heard rumors that this character Gon is the reason this game has never been re-released on newer platforms. I'm not sure if that is actually true or not. I just say fuck this character if that's actually the case. There are 3 ways to play Tekken 3. The PS1 version of Tekken 3, within Tekken 5 as well, there's an arcade history section where you can pick from Tekken 1, 2, and 3, the arcade versions of all of them, I believe, and obviously the arcade version. Those are the only 3 ways you can play this game. It has never been ported to any other console. I'm sure they've made buckets of money if they re-released this game on modern hardware, or even just ported it. But like, who wouldn't buy that? I know Tekken 3 has made money, like tons and tons of money, actually beating this game out with sales numbers, but it truly would be a blessing to have this game in fully modern graphics. And that is Tekken 3, 26 years later. This game is a mouthful, and seriously still holds up today. Going back, this was such a fun time. Playing through the arcade mode with different characters, the side modes are fun. It has a lot of content for a fighting game, along with the smooth controls, fluid gameplay, in-depth fighting system. I agree with this statement that it was truly ahead of its time. Everything in this game is so enjoyable, to some degree at least, having unlockable characters, secret characters, and forcing you to experience everything Tekken 3 had to offer. You should be able to see why this game was a must-buy back then. If you compare it to games like Mortal Kombat 4, it just made it irrelevant instantly. Why on God's green earth would I ever bother to play Mortal Kombat 4 when I have this game that came out the same year, mind you, that has better graphics, better fundamentally, has more content, better fighting system, better everything, to be honest with you. The fatalities are the only saving grace that Mortal Kombat would have over this, but even they aren't good enough to compare with this beast. I know to the hardcore player base of Tekken, this game is not regarded as the best game, but that does not take away how groundbreaking this game actually was. How many memories it created, how many characters were born from here, amazing soundtracks, amazing everything. It's truly a masterpiece of a game due to the fun factor alone. For the super hardcore players, you can think of this game not the best with the fighting mechanics, but sometimes a game can be S tier due to the enjoyment factor it gives and the experience it can provide to you. Tekken 7 to me is the best when it comes to the fighting aspects and competitive play, but Tekken 3 is the best overall to me due to the sheer fun factor that it gives to the player.